Hello and welcome to Echoes of History, the podcast where we dig up the stories that time forgot. I'm your host, Sam.
And I'm Oscar.
So, Oscar, get this. Imagine being so legendary that for centuries after you die, people are still calling your name for good luck, calling you the god of happiness.
The god of happiness? No way. Who gets a title like that?
Right? Not a king, not a general, but a figure who becomes this almost supernatural force for good. Today, we're talking about a Circassian prince named Inal. That's I-N-A-L.
Inal. Okay. I'm intrigued. Was he a real guy, or is this like a King Arthur situation, a legend that might be based on a real person?
That is the million-dollar question. He's this massive key figure for the Circassians, Abyssinians, and Abkhazians. He's seen as the great unifier who founded all the main princely families for the plain Circassians. But the history, it gets a little messy.
Messy how?
Well, historians can't quite agree on when he lived. Some sources, like an old letter from 1753 to a Russian empress, place him ruling around the time of a Khan named Genebek. So that puts his rise to power in the last third of the 1300s. Think of him as the Circassian Ivan Khalida, a leader who was gathering up scattered lands while the big empire was falling.
So he's taking advantage of the power vacuum.
Exactly. But then other historians in the 1800s thought he reigned in the early 1400s. And to make it even more confusing, one modern historian, Samir Kotko, suggested there might have been two Inals.
Oh, come on. That's just cheating.
I know, right? He proposed one Inal in the 13th century and another Inal Kabardiansky, that's Kabardian, in the second half of the 15th century, who the main stories are about. It's like, which one are we even talking about?
Okay, so his timeline is a puzzle. What about his origin story? Where did he come from?
This is my favorite part. There was this legend that got really popular in Moscow in the 1500s that Inal was of Egyptian origin. It was such a big deal that when the Cherkassy princes, his descendants, got their official coat of arms in Russia, it had a turban on it to honor the Egyptian legend.
Wait, he was actually Egyptian?
Well, probably not. It was likely a story to give the family more prestige in the Russian Empire. But here's the kernel of truth. There was a real Mamluk sultan in Egypt named Inal, who was Circassian by birth. He ruled from 1453 to 1461, but he died and was buried in Cairo, so he couldn't have been the guy starting a dynasty in the Caucasus.
So he's just a namesake. It's a cool story, though.
It's a great story, and the name Inal was super common. It just comes from a Turkic word meaning leader. A writer named Shora Nogma really ran with the Egyptian version, but his timeline had massive inconsistencies, like being off by 60 years. So it was probably more, artistic imagination.
So if we ignore the Egyptian stuff and the two Inal theory, what did the main legendary Inal do?
He was a unifier. He basically took all these separate, squabbling Circassian and Abyssinian principalities and brought them under his control. His territory was huge, stretching from the Taman Peninsula all the way to the Caspian steppes.
How would he manage that? I can't imagine all the local lords were happy about it.
Oh, they were not happy. The legends say he had to face down a combined army of 30 powerful feudal lords who tried to stop him.
30 against 1, so he gets crushed.
You'd think, but in a decisive battle near the Mzimta River, he completely defeated them. And he wasn't messing around. He had 10 of them executed on the spot, and the rest were forced to swear loyalty.
That's savage. And effective, I guess.
Totally. After that, the people of Circassia basically accepted him as their great and supreme prince. To keep things running smoothly, he appointed 40 judges to govern the land. He was seen as this ideal, wise ruler who brought peace and stability.
The story always takes a turn, though. What about his family? Did they keep the peace?
Well, according to one legend, in his old age, Inal divided his lands among his sons, who became the ancestors of the major Circassian tribes. the Temergoys, the Bislanes, and the Kabardians.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was. His son, Temruk, whom Circassian songs called the man of the iron heart, got greedy. He rebelled against his own father, stripped him of his power, and declared himself the new prince of princes.
Oh, wow, Shakespearean.
Right? The other brothers didn't accept his supremacy, but Inal, who the people basically saw as a saint, managed to reconcile them before he died. He made them promise to honor the Temergoy prince as the leader just because Inal himself had lived among them.
So his legacy held for a little while, at least.
Barely. After he died, the ambitions of all his sons and grandsons just exploded. The unity he built completely fractured, and the country split back into a bunch of small feuding territories. That fragile unity he worked so hard for was basically gone.
So in the end, the unification didn't last, but his legend clearly did. You mentioned he was called the god of happiness.
Exactly. He became larger than life. The historian Sultan Khan Gire wrote that people saw him as a supernatural person endowed with holiness. They believed just saying his name could bring success to anything they did.
That's incredible.
And his name is still all over the map there. There is an Inal Bay on the Black Sea, a Mount Inal, a river Inal, and even a sacred gravesite called Inal Kuba in a place called Psku, Psku. He's literally part of the landscape.
So it doesn't really matter if there was one Inal or two, or if he was Egyptian. He represents something powerful.
I think that's it exactly. He represents this golden age of unity and wise rule that people looked back on. Even though his empire fell apart, the idea of him became this powerful, almost godlike legend.
It really makes you wonder, what's that tipping point? What makes someone go from being just a historical figure to a name people call on for help, a true legend?
I have no idea, but whatever it is, Prince Inal had it. He was the unifier, the lawgiver, and for centuries to come, the god of happiness. And that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another Echoes of History episode on Abkhaz World.